This is a 2021 Toyota Highlander Hybrid Limited with all-wheel drive. A big SUV with a lot of space that uses the little engine that could to keep it moving. Fortunately, the little engine gets more than a little help from multiple electric motors, and that's on both the front and rear axles. My name is Robin Warner, an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and I want to tell you more about it. The Toyota Highlander Hybrid Limited is the second highest of several trims you can buy, above the L, LE, XLE, and XSE trims, but beneath the Platinum Highlanders. That means you get 20-inch instead of 18-inch wheels and a whole lot of nice kit, but go without the panoramic view roof. Powering the Highlander is a 2.5-liter inline 4-cylinder engine producing a peak output of 186 horsepower and 175 pound-feet of torque. That power is then channeled through a continuously variable transmission and onto the front wheels. But that is also only half of it, as there are two, count them, two electric motors helping things along. The first hangs out with the engine up front and provides an additional 180 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. The second is mounted on the rear axle and provides half-shaft-free all-wheel drive capability. It produces 54 horsepower and 89 pound-feet of torque. It should be noted, however, that power and torque peaks do not come at the same time and speeds as the internal combustion engine. That being the case, peak combined horsepower is 243 and peak combined torque is, well, frankly, not provided by Toyota, and that's probably because it varies based on a myriad of factors and specific driving conditions. The point is that it has a lot more power and pull than a non-turbocharged 4-cylinder could provide on its own. The base price for the 2021 Toyota Highlander is $35,985. The Highlander Limited Hybrid All-Wheel Drive starts at $48,290, and my test car cost $50,363. For those that are interested, I included detailed specifications including dimensions, fuel economy, and options in the description. All right, let's take a look around the car. Well, here it is, the 2021 Toyota Highlander Hybrid Limited with all-wheel drive. This particular one is painted in blueprint blue, and it comes with 20-inch wheels, being the limited model, though the Platinum model, which is a higher trim, gets a different set of 20-inch wheels. Overall, the shape is pretty standard car-based SUV, unit construction SUV, but it's certainly not a bad looking car in profile. I do like the little things they did here. It's a fun little spoiler back there because of course you're going to need the extra downforce. I like the roof rails here in the silver paint, and the chrome trim around the windows is nice. This car has $599 running boards, which I think fit the car well. As Toyotas go, it's a pretty darn decent front grille. You know, it gets a little busy down low with these horizontal slots running beneath, and especially next to the fog lights here. But generally speaking, I think it looks tasteful. I like the way the headlamps wrap around into the side profile and kind of line up with the top of the grille and the Toyota logo right there. Looking around in back, pretty much the same story. Nice looking tail lamps that wrap around. I did manage to get this one a little bit dusty, but generally speaking, it's a good design shape. And one element that I particularly appreciate is there's no fake exhaust outlets anywhere here. It's just a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine humming along, and that output comes through that single tailpipe right there. Simple, no nonsense, easy solution. Let's take a look inside. The first thing you'll notice here is the two-tone interior color. The lighter is called Harvest Beige, and I quite like it. I think it's a nice, tasteful color combination, and I'm actually quite happy that it's not black. You do get 2-position seat memory, obviously power windows, power locks, things like that. The seat adjustment is powered, and right there you do get lumbar adjustment, which is nice. You also get more options right here, including a heated steering wheel, power liftgate, automatic headlamps, etc., etc. The steering wheel tilt and telescope is manual. It's right there. One thing that is becoming increasingly rare in cars like this is that you get two real gauges and then a smaller screen in the center, as opposed to just one big digital screen across the entire instrument cluster. And I have to say that I think I prefer it this way. I guess I'm old in that way, or old school at the very least. When you turn it on, this being a hybrid, there's no specific engine startup, but you can see that it is a speedometer on the right and not quite a tachometer on the left. That's kind of like a power usage meter of sorts, which includes whether you're getting charge from the electric motors, whether you're going easy or going a little harder with the power output. And as you can see beneath, you have coolant temperature and fuel economy, a fuel gauge below that. And as you can see, I've been driving this car pretty darn hard, but still achieving 31.2 miles per gallon, which is pretty darn good. Over here, this particular car has the $1,050 option of getting the 12.3-inch touchscreen. That is standard on the Platinum models, but it's a nice, easy to read screen with lots of information on it, easy to use, all those things. I like it. But I also like the fact that I have plenty of buttons beneath as well. So cooled seats, heated seats, HVAC controls, things like that. Below that, you've got a nice little table here, which is good for housing a smartphone. Now, that's not a Qi wireless charger there, but it's a good place to store it. And beneath that, you have a little bit more storage, as well as a USB connection for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, as well as two wireless charging points, and then a third cigarette lighter style right there. You do get two cup holders and, pretty standard looking Prindle, as well as drive modes. Got to have drive modes. And then here you have stability control on off, EV mode if you want to go low speeds just using electricity, and then also a trail mode. Now, this is not a Qi wireless charger up there, but it does have wireless charging. It is right there, which is pretty clever to have it in a place like that. And if you lift it up, that's where your more standard center console storage goes. You also get up here, controls for your moonroof, which is right there. And you've got a nice little mirror. You can check on passengers back there and you can see yourself. And then behind that, of course, is a sunglasses holder. But generally speaking, this is a very comfortable and very spacious interior. Let me show you in back. Now, I don't want you to get too excited about the fact that this is 3 rows, because the third row is easy to access, but look how low the seats are to the ground and the lack of layroom. This is really for kids only, but it's a fair amount of room for kids, and you can legitimately sit 3 back there. For shorter trips, I think it would be just fine. Now, this particular car has the 8-seat configuration, so it's 3 row up there as well, but Toyota does offer captain chair configuration for the second row if you'd rather have 7 as well. Now, even though you don't have the 7 passenger configuration, you still have a lot of comforts here, okay? You've got more charging options down here, USB ports, and even an inverter here to plug in AC. You've got another setup for HVAC controls back here. If you don't have a middle passenger, they get cup holders. Now, when it comes to the seats themselves, you do have, as I showed you already, that's easy access to get to the third row, or you can do that from there. You can fold it flat entirely by hitting that, and that folds down. And then, in addition to that, this seat also moves back and forth like this. So I suppose the third row actually has decent leg room if the second row passengers are willing to sacrifice a little bit. All in all, it's easy to configure. You have different options. Second row has plenty of space, and the third row has, let's say, enough space, right? And then, moving to the tailgate, of course, it's powered. With the third row up, you don't have tons of passenger space, but the third row is easy enough to fold flat. And now you have plenty of space, right? And good amount of storage options, things like that. And you do have another inverter plug right there. And this thing is really clever. They're on both the second and third rows. The seat belts don't rattle around because Toyota has incorporated these flaps here. So you've got a strap to hold, a holder for the strap right there, and a spot for the seat belt clasp as well. Put that in so that when you're driving around doesn't shake at all. I drove it around with those things unconnected, and you can hear the seat belts moving around. So it was super nice to have that option built into the car. That's a clever detail, and those are the types of things you have to appreciate. So anyway, let's go for a drive. Hi everybody. Well, here we are, 2021 Toyota Highlander Hybrid Limited with all-wheel drive. That is kind of a mouthful, but all of those things mean specific things, right? So Toyota Highlander, that part's pretty obvious. All-wheel drive, that part's pretty obvious because it's front-wheel drive as standard. And then hybrid, because it has 2 electric motors in addition to the engine to push things along. And finally, the limited model, which means it's the second highest available trim, which means there's a lot of niceties built into this car. So let's break down this car kind of by the parts of the name, right? Starting with the hybrid bit, you know, that's probably the biggest and most obvious difference to talk about. This car has a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine instead of a 3.5 liter V6. Now, that 3.5 liter V6 is kind of in a lot of Toyotas and Lexuses these days. In the Highlander, it makes 295 horsepower, 263 pound-feet of torque, and, you know, does a perfectly adequate job to push this big 3-row SUV around. That, however, does not get anywhere near the 35 miles to the gallon city, 34 miles to the gallon on the highway, 35 combined that this Toyota Highlander Hybrid gets. So we're in an SUV that weighs more than 4,500 pounds and still gets mid-30s in terms of fuel economy, which is an impressive number. And even when you give such a car to a person with a heavy right foot like me, I'm still getting better than 30 miles to the gallon. And I have not gone easy on this thing, I can assure you. Let me just say that I've had to get a couple places this week and I've been running late. Now, the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine runs on the Atkinson cycle, which means that it gets a little bit more efficiency out of the engine and gives up a little bit of specific output as a result. So, despite the fact that Toyota claims that this has a 14:1 compression ratio, which is like Ferrari territory, it actually doesn't. It's fundamentally built to have 14:1 compression ratio, but because the intake valves stay open a little longer while it's compressing up, the compression ratio is actually lower than that, and the expansion ratio is 14:1. But anyway, it's still cool that we live in such a time that you can get these kind of fuel economy numbers out of a vehicle this size. But it's not pure benefit here, it has to be said, because the non-hybrid Highlander can tow up to 5,000 pounds, which gets you into class 3 trailer territory and some other things like this. The hybrid models can only tow 3,500 pounds. Now that's still pretty decent. You can still tow, like, you know, a small camper, a good utility trailer, things like that. But, you know, it's not the same. And the other thing you might be concerned about is performance, straight line performance specifically. And, you know, it's not over the top impressive, but 243 combined horsepower and obviously a lot more power and torque down low because of the electric motors, it's not nearly as bad as it sounds. Here, let me show you. All right, briefly coming to a stop. So yeah, I mean, that's really not bad. You know, good pull. It's not the best sounding as it gets up to speed, but it gets up to speed pretty quickly. And because you have the electric motors helping low end, you get a decent amount of pull right away. It doesn't feel muscular. You don't get pushed back to the seat at all. And because it's a CVT, things are a little bit like there's not the distinct gears that you're pushing through or anything like that. But power is totally adequate. So it's not viscerally satisfying, but it gets the job done. Aside from that, you've got a lot of space in here, nearly 140 cubic feet of passenger space, which, that's just a lot of room. And you've got a lot of great comfort here. The seats are very comfortable, very plush, plenty of adjustment. I have nice width. This car is 76 inches wide, so I have plenty of shoulder room, good equipment. The interior, as I showed you, is well laid out, and I've got a lot of options here. This limited model gives me heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, all the type of things that us up north folk really appreciate, right? And the ride is super cushy, nice and comfortable there, handles bumps with no trouble at all, and goes over rough pavement nice and smoothly, quietly. And at highway speeds, you've got good wind noise isolation, good road noise isolation. It's a plenty comfortable place to be, and I think this would be a strong car to have a family that you need to tackle several hundred miles in a day. You could do so and do it in comfort in this Highlander. Of course, the flip side of that is handling, and the Highlander is not the best handler out there. And really, okay, what would you expect? It's a 3-row SUV from Toyota. Toyota does have a bit of a reputation, and that reputation isn't sharp handling, right? So that in of itself is not a huge surprise. However, that is not the end of the story here, because for 2021, new for this model year, Toyota is now offering the XSE trimmed Toyota Highlander, which Toyota has tuned differently than the rest of the models to have sharper handling and, better steering feel and things like that. I haven't driven one yet, so I can't say if it's better, but it almost has to be, because this thing is super light steering, super floaty, and not at all satisfying from a driving point of view, right? And because it's a hybrid, there's it's not perfect with the brake integration between normal brakes and hybrid energy recovery when you're braking, things like that. So this is not even close to a driver's car. But look, Toyota has proven as of late that it is certainly capable of building driver's cars. The new Lexus IS350, great driver's car. The Toyota Supra, great driver's car. So there's a lot of potential, right? And also, guys like Audi and Porsche have proven, and Mercedes have proven that, and of course BMW, have proven that building a 3-row SUV that's still satisfying to drive can happen, certainly. But whether Toyota will build one of them, that's a taller order. But I'm quite intrigued, I have to say. The idea of a sportier version of a 3-row SUV from Toyota, that has interest. And also, it's not just on the Lexus side, and it's not just the sports cars. They have the Toyota Camry and Toyota Avalon TRD. And, those things are kind of a hoot. They're entertaining, right? So I'm quite curious to see Toyota's version of a sportier 3-row SUV. Anyway, this is not that. Toyota clearly took the route of comfort and consumer ease over enthusiast driving fun here. And you can't argue with them on that. Obviously that's the vast majority of the population, and especially in a car of this class, especially when you go hybrid, all of these things, just there's so much pragmatism to stand on that you can't really argue with it, right? So whatever. Don't get this if you're a driver enthusiast, but maybe recommend it to your non-driver enthusiast friends that want good fuel economy and a lot of space and a lot of comfort too. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Those types of things help me out a lot. Okay, goodbye.